Hi and good evening. Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I am Buddham. Now the latest headlines from world channels and news agencies.
Purported leaked.
Today, police resources to be boosted after an anti-Israel attack in Sydney's east.
This is antithetical and completely opposite to the kind of community and society that we want in Australia in 2024.
Also ahead, a man arrested after the body of a woman is found inside a home in Sydney's southwest. Childcare subsidy boosts. The Albanese government pledges $1 billion to build dozens of new early education centres. And thousands of residents ordered to evacuate as an uncontrolled fire burns along the southern California coast. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ros Childs. There's been widespread condemnation.
Tonight, chilling new details in the murder of United Healthcare's CEO, exploding wildfires triggering evacuations in Southern California, and the break-in at an NFL star's home during Monday Night Football. First, murder suspect Luigi Mangione yelling at cameras as he's taken into court in Pennsylvania. An officer grabbing him by the back of the neck, leading him inside. The suspect now fighting his return to New York for the murder of CEO Brian Thompson. A source telling ABC News police believe Mangione's alleged cold-blooded killing was a, quote, symbolic takedown, and he may have been inspired by the Unabomber. His mother filing a missing persons report before the shooting. Aaron Katursky in Pennsylvania. Also tonight, a massive wildfire tearing across Southern California. Homes destroyed, thousands forced to evacuate, winds gusting up to 90 miles per hour. Students at Pepperdine University told to shelter in place, Trevor Alt in the fire zone. Tracking a new storm threat moving into the northeast, heavy rain, possible flash flooding, and dangerous winds from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, New York to Boston. Overseas tonight, following the fall of the Assad regime, Israel unleashing a wave of attacks targeting Syria's military bases and destroying its naval fleet. The IDF determined to keep chemical weapons from falling into the hands of rebel forces. New video showing Assad's abandoned fleet of luxury cars. Our team went inside one of the presidential palaces and a notorious prison where the Assad regime is accused of torturing and executing inmates. James Longman in Syria and what he witnessed. Tonight, the new break-in during Monday Night Football. Police called to the home of Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, thieves in his house while he was on the field against the Cowboys. Growing concern about mystery drone sightings over New Jersey. 11 confirmed reports near an Army base. And for the first time, Jamie Foxx taking the stage, breaking his silence about his mystery health scare and the 20 days he doesn't remember.
From ABC News World Headquarters in
Tonight, the outburst outside the courthouse as the suspected killer of United Healthcare CEO is denied bail and fights extradition back to New York. Luigi Mangione dragged into a Pennsylvania courthouse today, shouting to the cameras.
And it's completely out of touch, and it's insult, intelligence of the American people, and lived experience.
The 26-year-old fighting his extradition on a murder charge. The new body cam image, the suspect eating at McDonald's before his arrest, and new details on that note found when he was captured. The potential motivation. Did Mangione's own health problems play a role in this shocking crime? Our full coverage just ahead. Also tonight, the explosive wildfire spreading in Malibu, forcing evacuations. Students at Pepperdine University sheltering inside the library as flames rage outside. The chaos in Syria after rebels seize power. Richard Engel on the desperate search inside the fallen regime's prisons for detainees who've spent decades in darkness. Jamie Foxx revealing new details about the mystery illness he says left him near death. And years after retiring, what inspired Olympic legend Lindsey Vonn to return to the slopes.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Completely out of touch and insult the intelligence of the American people.
The CEO murder suspect's outburst outside the courthouse. The 26-year-old denied bail and fighting extradition to New York. Our new reporting.
It was like a war zone, fire everywhere, and I thought the wheels were going to melt on the car.
A fast-moving wildfire burns out of control in Malibu, forcing thousands to evacuate. The scary moment flames approached a university library.
That's crazy.
This is one of the solitary confinement cells. This place just reeks of despair.
CBS News goes inside a notorious Syrian prison where thousands were tortured. Tonight, the search for missing loved ones. And how to protect your packages from porch pirates this holiday season. The CBS Evening News starts now.
With two other stories out of New York City that provide a very disturbing glimpse into the radical elements that represent the new modern extreme radical Democratic Party. As we speak, some on the left, they're now literally cheering for the cold-blooded killer accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now, this guy was a husband and a father. At the very same time, they are vilifying Daniel Penny, who was just found not guilty of negligent homicide by a New York City jury. Well, prosecutors, they attempted to throw Penny in prison after he restrained what was a deranged career criminal who was high on drugs, making death threats, lunging at passengers on a New York City subway. In a minute, we're going to bring you exclusive new clips from Judge Piro's interview with Penny, which will air in full on Fox Nation tomorrow. But first, let us focus on the left's new folk hero, Luigi Mangione. Okay, that's the 26-year-old from Townsend, Maryland. Seemingly, this guy had it all. Born into a wealthy Maryland family, he was a prep school valedictorian. He went on to earn not one but 2 degrees from the University of Pennsylvania. He's now accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, allegedly shooting the father of 2 in the back just before a 7 a.m. morning in Midtown Manhattan. How did that happen? Now,
good evening, I'm Amna Nabaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the NewsHour tonight, the new leaders of Syria begin the difficult task of keeping the rebel factions united now that their common enemy has been overthrown.
The suspect in the New York City killing of the United Healthcare CEO is charged with murder. What we know about the alleged shooter's history.
And we look at the controversial changes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could make to vaccine policy as the head of Health and Human Services.
He is a voice machine that continues to put out dis and misinformation in such a way that it sounds believable to the public.
Tonight, CBC News is inside Syria after rebels toppled the Assad regime. Hope and fear at a notorious prison near Damascus as families search for any sign of loved ones taken during Assad's brutal reign.
As an insult to the intelligence of the American people.
A dramatic court appearance for the man accused of assassinating a health insurance CEO.
This is one of the last people you'd think would do something like this.
We break down how Luigi Mangione went from a life of privilege to prime suspect in a high-profile murder. And armed intruders broke into his Ontario home, but when he tried to call 911, he was put on hold 3 times.
It was kind of the most desperate, helpless feeling I've ever had.
The challenges facing call centers across the country.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
The Service Canada website says the office is closed until further notice due to the flooding, and it's directing people to a Londonderry Mall office. That is now the only place in northern Alberta where you can apply for an urgent passport. This is what the line looked like at Londonderry Mall earlier today. Because of the Canada Post strike, passports must be picked up in person. Anyone needing one within 9 days must pick it up at the Service Canada Centre in Calgary. For some people, that's turning renewing a passport into an hours-long or even days-long struggle.
I was here yesterday, and then I got through the whole system, made it into the seats, and then they put me in the wrong lineup.
Here yesterday at 11:30 in the morning, drove in from Slave Lake, and at 4 o'clock we got to the door, and they said, sorry, we're closed. So that was the end of yesterday.
Anyone who previously applied for an urgent passport and was told to pick it up at Canada Place can do so at Londonderry Mall. But again, if you're needing it before 10 days' time, you will have to drive to Calgary to get it. Jeff?
All right, Sylvana.
Louis, how you doing? Clearly out of touch.
New insight this Tuesday night into an accused murderer,
Oh my God, like, that's my neighbor.
his alleged manifesto, and what may have fueled his anger. Damning evidence against India on foreign interference.
You're playing with people's lives.
What it is allegedly doing to silence critics in Canada, a Global News exclusive. Out of control, the rapidly growing wildfire racing through parts of California. And thou shalt not profit from the Ten Commandments.
These stones are incredibly rare.
But someone will, the heavenly auction for this relic.
Sonzo, reporting from Lagos, Nigeria for France 24. Join me on all updates on Nigeria on France 24 news programs.
Chinwe Osondo, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Hello, you're tuned in to Daybreak on France 24. I'm Karis Garland. Thanks for joining us. Here's a look at our top stories. South Korean police have raided the president's office as the investigation into Yoon Suk-yeol's declaration of martial law gathers pace. Some of his top officials were arrested, detained and questioned. We'll get the latest from our regional correspondent, Yenna Lee. Syria's new transitional prime minister says it is time for stability and calm in the country. Mohammed al-Bashir has been appointed to run Syria until March 1st. And the clock is ticking after French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday gave himself 48 hours to name a new prime minister. The head of state has been holding meetings with party leaders from across the political spectrum, with the exception of the far right and the far left. Also coming up this hour, 3 dinosaur skeletons will go under the hammer in London this month, expecting bids to reach the millions. The prehistoric treasures, which include a Stegosaurus, date back to the Jurassic period around 150 million years ago. South Korean police have raided the president's office as the...
Hello, you're watching Sky News. I'm Nick Qureshi. Here are the headlines at 2. Unearthing the secrets of the Assad regime. We go inside a hospital as desperate people search through body bags for those murdered.
Coming to morgues where they know people who have been tortured to death. Their bodies have been found here and identified.
Their fears are unnecessary. God willing, the country will be rebuilt.
A Syrian rebel leader tells Sky News that Western fears are unnecessary, promising to rebuild the country. And Israel destroys ships in the Syrian Navy fleet, saying it wants to eliminate strategic threats. Also ahead.
And completely out of touch. And it's not the intelligence of the American people.
The alleged killer of a US health insurance boss shouts at reporters outside the Pennsylvania courthouse where he's been denied bail. And a sneak peek at the Saudi Arabia World Cup set to be officially announced today. Hello, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Throughout the half-century...
From the moment the suspect let his mask down to smile at a receptionist and look straight into the camera of a New York taxi, it was only a matter of time before he would be spotted and arrested, unmasked as Luigi Mangione. The 26-year-old who was last night arrested and charged with murder after being on the run from police since the deadly shooting of a health insurance boss who was gunned down outside a hotel in Manhattan 6 days ago. How did it come to this for the boy who was top of his class at an elite school in Maryland, who went to an Ivy League college and whose Facebook page reveals an athletic young man who loved to travel and had lots of friends, that he would somehow allegedly morph into a cold-blooded killer?
You think a lot of people who commit such heinous crimes are often outcasts or something like that? This was not the case with him.
Available on all podcast platforms.
This is DW News and these are our top stories. Israel says it has carried out nearly 500 airstrikes on Syrian military assets over the last 2 days, striking most of Syria's strategic weapons stockpiles. The military says it wants to prevent weapons from the ousted Assad regime from falling into the hands of Islamist extremists. It also targeted weapons warehouses, ammunition depots and dozens of C-to-C missiles. The rebel coalition now in control of Syria has named a prime minister to head a transitional government until March 1st. Mohammed al-Bashir had previously led the opposition administration in Idlib province. He takes over from the prime minister of the overthrown Assad regime, who has been working with the rebels to coordinate the transfer of power. Around 6,000 people in the US state of California are under evacuation orders as a wildfire spreads in the Malibu area. Fire officials say strong winds are complicating efforts to stop the blaze as it threatens buildings, including a university campus. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find more on our website at dw.com.
Back as we update this hour's top stories. South Korean police raid President. Welcome back as we update this hour's top stories. South Korean police raid President Yoon Suk-yeol's office amid a growing investigation into his failed martial law attempt. Meanwhile, the former defense minister arrested on insurrection charges attempts suicide in detention. A flare-up of anti-Semitic attacks in Australia, one car torched and 2 properties vandalized just days after an arson attack at a synagogue. And Syria's new caretaker prime minister calls for calm and stability as he oversees the nation's high-stakes transition days after opposition fighters toppled the Assad regime. Syria's new caretaker prime minister is calling for stability and calm. Mohammed al-Bashir has been appointed by the rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HD.
Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Nairobi on Tuesday to denounce rising femicide cases in Kenya, only to face a violent police crackdown that left many injured and dispersed.
The constitution is very clear, and everybody must show fidelity to the constitution of Kenya, including the police. Tunakimbizwa hapa kama watoto na tumekuja kuteta juu ya wale watu wanauawa, wale wasichana wanauawa, wale wa mama wanauawa. It's happening everywhere. I mean, our lives do not matter in this country. I mean, tutaishi hivi mpaka lini?
Protesters had gathered to highlight the alarming number of killings of women and girls in the country. Police responded with tear gas, leading to chaos in the streets. Kenya is grappling with a silent epidemic of gender-based violence. Police data shows that 97 women were killed between August and November 2024, most by their male partners. Nancy Watera, another protester, called on authorities to listen to women's pleas.
We're begging you to not kill us. What's wrong? We came here for a reason, and they're throwing tear gas all over. Women are dispersed all over. It's very wrong for police to do this. It's high time for you to listen to women. Stop killing us!
A recent UN report reviewed Africa as the highest global rate of partner-related femicide. Last month, President William Ruto pledged 700,000 for a campaign to end femicide, but activists argue that concrete action is still lacking.
The National Transitional Council of Chad has promoted General Mahamat Idris Deby to the rank of Marshal on Monday. A total of 160 members voted to adopt the resolution against 2, while 6 abstained in a council mostly dominated by the ruling Patriotic Salvation Movement, also known as MPS. This promotion now ranks Mahamat at the same level as his late father, Idris Deby Itno, who was the president of Chad.
A protected wildlife reserve in Congo is under threat from gold miners. Locals accuse Kimia Mining, a Chinese company, of digging for gold in the heritage site without concern for the fragile ecosystems. The company has been operating for 8 years despite protests by conservationists. I'm one of the former inhabitants of Badingaido. Around 14 years ago, we lived well, mixing work in the fields with artisanal gold mining. Our life has not been the same since the Chinese came and chased us out of the bush. We can no longer work or send our children to school. If the Chinese meet you in the forest, they hit you. That's how difficult life has become here in Badingaido. The Okapi Wildlife Reserve became a protected site in 1996. Its original boundaries were established 3 decades ago by Congo's government and encompass the area where the Chinese miners operate. The community is worried because the Chinese are operating in a protected area where the community is not allowed to do the same, including its namesake, the Okapi.
Life is slowly returning to Damascus, Syrian capital. The city has just survived a violent attack by the opposition rebel, forcing President Bashar al-Assad to flee to Moscow. Some businesses were seen resuming operations, including bank establishments. Several private banks opened on Tuesday and employees came to work, signaling a resumption of economic activities that were deemed closed indefinitely. Thank to God, banks are open. We were not expecting it to open after the ousting of the hit different regions of Syria overnight, and Israeli troops seized a border buffer zone. Israel denied its forces were advancing towards Damascus after.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's military has launched a wide-scale assault on Syria after the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime, bombing military sites, weapons warehouses, airports, army air bases, and cities and provinces across Syria, including the capital Damascus. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reports in just the 2 days, Israel's carried out some 340 airstrikes.
Meanwhile, queues and a meeting of MPs to discuss the impact of inheritance tax on farmers.
Yes, but despite the protest, the government says their commitment to farmers is steadfast and they will not change course on the policy.
Well, let's get more on this with our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who joins us live from Westminster. Good morning to you, Catherine. The optics of this is going to be very embarrassing for the government and the farming community, frankly, really ramping up the pressure.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, both, and not least because the Prime Minister's name rhymes with farmer, so they've dubbed him Starmer the Farmer Harmer. Previously, we had free gear care, two-tier care, and so on and so forth. But tractors in Westminster becoming not a very unusual sight. We had them just a few weeks ago.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wenslow with your headlines just after 9 o'clock. The UK and Germany have reached a landmark deal to tackle migrant smuggling. Germany has agreed to tighten laws, making it easier to prosecute smugglers behind small boat crossings to the UK. The deal also focuses on intelligence sharing and removing smuggling content from social media to disrupt criminal networks. Independent MP Iqbal Mohammed has spoken out against a proposed ban on first cousin marriages in the UK, calling the move unnecessary and unenforceable. Speaking in the Commons, Mr Mohammed acknowledged the health risks, but stressed the need for a cultural shift, not legislation, to address the issue. He did condemn forced marriages and virginity testing, highlighting the need to protect women's rights. However, the MP for Dewsbury and Batley argued that banning first cousin marriages would not solve the problem. Now, the alleged killer of a US health insurance boss has tussled with police officers outside the court as they escorted him in. Luigi Mangione, in handcuffs, shouted to reporters outside the Pennsylvania courthouse.
Completely out of touch and insult the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
The 26-year-old has been charged with murder after United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was gunned down in a targeted attack in New York last week. Police arrested Mangione at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania after a customer recognised him from media reports. To London now, where 2 people have been taken to hospital after an explosion in a terraced house in Ilford. It's after a video emerged online showing the moment that the house seemed to explode before erupting into flames. Eight fire engines and around 60 firefighters were deployed to the scene as the roof and the first floor of the 2-storey property were alight. The London Fire Brigade says Leigh Street is closed between Eastern Avenue and Vicarage Road, and they're asking the public to avoid the area. And former England rugby player Tom Royce is believed to have died after going into a river in his car in Northumberland. Northumbria police said it received a report on Sunday the 43-year-old had not returned to his home following an evening with friends. It is believed he attempted to cross the Aberwick Ford in his car, which was then pulled along the current of the River Alne. Police have since recovered the car, but officers have not found Mr. Royce, and it is believed he was carried away while attempting to escape and has died. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
Thank you for sparing your precious time. This is Amir Shakil. Have a good life. Bye-bye.